recorded unless you upgrade. That's all right. YouTube will save it. All right. Now I'm just waiting to see. I think it's like 30 seconds. There it goes. All right, we are live, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to kind of go over our last weekend's adventures at the All Seas Expo, Fall Fan Expo. Be sure and hit the like button if you haven't already. And today I've got a special guest with me, Mr. Cecil Lammey, the talk show host, NFL insider, and comic creator.
And Mythicomaniac, see?
And Mythicomaniac.
Yes, I'm wearing the shirt, rocking the gear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, I was going to wear mine, but it was already covered in cat hair between getting there and here. So.
Right.
And if you don't know, my name is Matt Campbell. I'm the creator of Mythica. Also go by Professor Campbell, or sometimes in class, Class Commander Campbell. But I want to start off by saying thank you so much to All Seas Collectables for putting on a great show this weekend. And thank you to James Farmsworth and crew for putting on a great event. There's a bunch of people involved in running it, and it went really smoothly. I was actually very honored to be listed as a special guest at the event because I don't always get that, but they used my artwork here as the VIP badge for the oops, we'll go back to that one. And because of that, I was able to get, a comp spot, and I'm always honored whenever I get a guest spot because there's a lot of people that could be guests there, a lot of great artists, and I love getting those spots, but I don't want to always assume that that's what I deserve.
Well, we know there's a lot of great people in this industry,
Yeah.
like there's a lot of deserving people, a lot of talented artists and creators. And for me, Matt, that's one of the main things of being out there, is just being around like-minded people and people that are incredibly talented, just admiring their artwork, whether that's artist alleys or inside it as the guests where we were set up.
Yeah. I mean, and then of course Cecil, he's a guest because he's freaking Cecil Lammey. So but I also want to thank all the amazing fans that came out and showed their support, especially to all the artists, but also especially the Mythicomaniacs that came out. We had quite a few of those, which was really fun. So yeah, what was your big highlight of the show?
Yeah, highlight of the show for me was just being around people that love comics, that love the art of comics. And as you well know, there's a lot of good people in this industry. Now, there's also some not so good people, but when you're highlighted and you get to learn and you get to be around these, positive people that are influential or energetic, that have a positive mindset, that, are going forward and understand the struggles of being an artist and being a creative person. It's not always easy for us creative types. So, kind of band together to understand the struggle and the triumphs and everything that we go through. I think it's fantastic. So whether it's James putting on this show, my man Smurf, you got Ken Sullivan running around doing his thing. Obviously, getting to meet you, Matt, and then getting to know you over the last couple of years, because they've had us by each other before, right, even if it was briefly for one time. But like, just being around you and watching the way that you conduct business, the way that you interact with the fans, how they react to you, and your artwork and your positive energy. Like it's something I study. I'm a people watcher. That's why I don't mind going to the airport a couple hours early. One, now you kind of got to, because all the flight stuff. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but like, yeah, I like people watching, and these type of places, you get like-minded people. They love, comic books. Obviously, a lot of people talk to me about football, but it's just fun. It's fun to be around like-minded people that are driven for the same ways that you and I are.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that for, someone that's an introvert like myself, I tend to like get inside of a bubble of productivity and working and creativity, and you run into these challenges that get frustrating sometimes, and it's really really helpful to the soul to like run into other people and realize that they're having those same challenges, and that and helping each other out, and offering advice. I always come back from events, especially the ones where I get to talk to other creators, like amped up and like ready to do more stuff and jump into new projects. Um, there are some shows that are just so dang busy with like sales or traffic that I don't get to do a whole lot of that. It's just working the table for 3 days straight and never really getting the opportunity to like have good conversations. So that's one of the things I was really appreciative of at this event.
Yeah, and Sunday is a networking day. Like Friday and Saturday, you work the table. Sunday, you try to break away a little bit, go talk to other creators and some really good people out there as well. And what I also noted for me and myself is I was kind of doing some market research, right? Because I
Hmm.
have 8 different IPs that I'm launching and in the process of figuring them out and putting them on into comic book form. Well, when I had these prints out on my table, which ones are people drawn to? What story resonates? I do a lot
Hmm.
of reading. Behind my banner, you'll see like Save the Cat, which is a screenplay writing book. It always tells you pitch to everybody, pitch to everybody, pitch to everybody, because
Right.
you can tell when you're talking to someone about your project, at what point do you lose them? So
Exactly.
you can
Exactly.
bring up somebody like, oh, hey, what's Sue Immortal about? And it was a very popular, response for my project Sue Immortal this weekend. So you start telling people what it's about, and you can see what they're excited about, and then you can see the parts where they're like, huh, or they get bored. And that helps me maybe kind of rework the way that I pitch things, and log lines and all these things that may seem kind of, I don't, not necessarily cheesy, but you don't really necessarily think about it, but you have to have that elevator pitch. You have to
You
have
do.
that log line. So whenever you're ready, you meet someone. When I met you, if I wasn't ready with some log lines, I'd just be some bumbling idiot, right? But you have to be ready, and so
Yeah.
when I talk about Gravis, I say with great power comes zero responsibility. Everybody laughs at that every single time because they understand the Spider-Man thing. It's like, well, we've
Right.
all been teenagers. Were we really responsible as a teenager? Hell
Right.
no. Sue
I-
Immortal, he's suicidal and immortal. Like, obviously, that's a conflict. And if you don't have conflict, you don't have a story. So it's really good to see the fans, talk to the fans, talk to other creators, and then in a way do market research as to what's hitting and maybe what needs a little more work.
Yeah, it took me. I mean, I still feel like I'm always perfecting the pitch for Mythica, but when I first started, it's much different than it is now, and I've learned a lot over the years about different ways to pitch that are quick and get people's attention. What kinds of things get people's attention? Um, and so yeah, it's great that you're like being attentive of that, like what works, what doesn't. Um, and I talked to a lot of different creators this weekend, and I do think that like you know a lot of people need practice in that area because they're just like this is my book, and
Right.
they're so
Well,
timid about
they
it.
want to explain everything to you. It's like, I don't have time for you to explain everything, but get me on what is quick. Hook me quick, and then I
Yeah.
will and examine it. So yeah, I could definitely see that. And for me, since I'm got movie mind about things, like you have to say what they're a combination of. With Gravis, it's Spider-Man meets Entourage. With
Hmm.
my project, The Familiars, it's Harry Potter meets Fox and the Hound.
Right.
So when you do these things, Fake Booze over here is the first one that's going to launch, and it's basically 21 Jump Street meets Ghostbusters. So when you do that with properties that people already know, then oh wow, I like 21 Jump Street, I like Ghostbusters, and you put them together, and you have Fake Booze. Like
Yeah.
people like that. They really dig that, and then you can tell them more. But
Yeah.
first you got to hook them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then, the other thing that happens is like when you start sharing it and getting some feedback on, what you have so far. Like, you have maybe some initial pages or some ideas or a script, and you start getting, feedback on that. I feel like that's another huge step that's uh, often overlooked. Something I talk about with my students a lot is that, when you're trying to make something for a target audience, like, yeah, we're writing our story that we want to tell, but we also like want it to appeal to that audience. Uh, you have to kind of get some of that feedback before you like launch it out there.
Right.
So doing some sort of preliminary stage work, whether it's rough drafts or a script, a preliminary script, and having people tell you what they think about it, particularly people that are in your target audience group, is a great way to tell like if you're on track or even if you're targeting to the right audience. Because a lot of people like just say, "Oh, I want to make something, and it's for everyone to like." And like that's not going to happen, you know.
Right. And I think that in this industry, and with as far along as you are with Mythica, it's like, talking about it is one thing. Doing it and completing it is a journey. It's a path. It's tough. It's full of challenges. And I'm just getting going on this. But Matt, I've been out at those conventions for, I don't know, a couple of years, right? And
Hmm.
like I'm getting going, I'm learning more. And so like it is a process. Hell, Gravis we created in 1991. Me and my
Yeah,
best friend.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like I've had that idea for a long time. Sue Immortal I created in like the early 2000s. So I've had that idea for a long time. So to get an actual book, to get product. And again, I watch a lot of YouTube videos, and they always say, you want a product, you don't want a project. People
Right.
projects, they only go so far. Everyone's
Good
got a
old
project,
Jake
right?
Parker.
Right. Give
So
them a product, complete it.
I someday you'll have to remind me. I might actually just make a post about this, but a while back, actually, when Action Line Studios was first getting started, it was me and Ron Root. It was the co-founder of Action Line Studios, and it started because we were working on this concept art book called Beyond Oz, and it started off as he and I brainstorming ideas and doing sketches for fun, and it was everything from dinosaurs to mechs. I mean, it had no purpose; it was just a drawing jam. But then as we started sketching, like Jake Parker's voice was booming in the back of my head about his podcast saying that you wanted to make a product.
That is from Jake Parker on YouTube. Yep. You want a
Yeah,
product, not a project.
and I ended up writing this whole forward talking about how Jake Parker ended up introducing and how he went from one thing to the next. And that's what this whole forward, talks about. It's actually labeled "Blame It on Jake Parker." Um, that's
Hey,
awesome.
yeah. Yeah, well, you got great
That's awesome.
creators out there like Jake, right? I watch Circworks
Yeah,
Labs on YouTube. I watch Jake Parker, and you just learn, right? You
yeah,
just
yeah,
and the wisdom that I've gained from you and just casual conversations, and how open you are with conversing about your project, your products, your work, your kind of guidance. It's invaluable. So I think all of us, no matter where you're at in the industry, just starting or already established, just learn, just listen and learn. And there's
yeah.
always wisdom in everyone you talk to.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that a lot of people tend to feel like they have to like safeguard the things that they've learned, or like a really common one is like, what printer do you use? And they're like, oh, I can't tell you the name of my printer.
Right. And
And
the
I'm
poor
like,
printer's like, I need more business. And they're like, we're not going to tell you. It's like, just tell
right,
us, right? Tell
right.
us.
What's up, Sam? Sam wants to be on camera.
Okay.
So yeah, I walked away with some interesting and great stories. I had a lot of great conversations that turned into great stories from this event. Starting with day one, you got there really early, but I started off on Friday. I was starting off late because I had to teach on Thursday really late. So I was just packing Friday morning, got on the road, and it was super heavy traffic. And then when I got into Denver, I went to the wrong hotel. So this is the hotel I went to. 6 blocks away is the other hotel that they had. And I was sitting there with all my gear hanging off of me in the lobby with James on the phone. And he's like, just go down the hall and just, you know, you'll find it. And so I'm wandering around the hallways of this place and finally realized that this was not the right DoubleTree. And that was my fault. I think originally I had the address in there. And then when I got in my car, I just like went to the Google Maps and saw DoubleTree on Quebec because they're both on Quebec,
Right.
and it took me there. So finally got there and got set up, and then Kenneth was really great about helping me set up a table that would fit my setup because originally it was like a really narrow table,
Mm-hmm.
and they took care of me real fast and then I was pleased to see I was sitting next to you. So I didn't know that until we got there. So
Really nice spot and also lots of room, because you and I have sat next to each other where we don't have a lot of room and we're like
right,
shoulder to shoulder, like, what are we doing?
yeah,
But this time, so much room, so much space, a very nice venue. The next one they say is going to be even larger, bigger, and better than ever. So, looking forward to that. But I was very pleased with the setup. And as always, sit next to you, get to sit there and wrap, get to sit there and draw. Sounds like a good time.
yeah. Anybody that's considering going next year, I think they always have, or they have had them now for twice a year, usually a spring and a fall. But yeah, they're talking about having it at the fairgrounds at the which fairgrounds was it?
Arapahoe County Fairgrounds. Yep.
Arapahoe County Fairgrounds, and
Mhm.
having a lot more space. So that means for some of you that like to set up, a wall of prints behind you or have a bigger setup, you'd have that kind of space. I almost had that. I probably could have set up a wall of prints behind me. I had the equipment, but I just didn't feel like prints were going to go over all that well anyway. So I wasn't really too concerned about it.
No, lots of space, and I like the security at night because we've had places where we break down every day, which
Mhm.
is the kind of the hassle. You break down, you put everything back up. The nice security there so that we could set up and then take the valuable stuff, but like leave some of our core set up there. That was very
Yeah,
nice as well.
yeah. I think even the people that were out in the hallway, there was a lot of artists up in the hallway. I think even they got a bit of security because a lot of them packed everything up, but I think that there was still security watching it. So, because they knew, I mean, it's a collector's show. There's a lot of valuable collectibles in there. So,
Mm-hmm.
so that's something else to keep in mind as you come to the next show next year. Is that they definitely will have security, and then on the other side of you, I reconnected with who I like to say the award-winning Emmy, so I remember her name.
Mm-hmm.
Cavoto, is that how you say her last name?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. So another amazing artist. She's also a graphic designer and I believe also a voice actress. A voice actor. I think you just say actor now. I don't know. Uh, but yeah, she's done all kinds of stuff and had some beautiful paintings there. I loved the diversity of different artists that were there. But right away, I think on day one, ended up having a good conversation with her, and she's going to come be a guest in my class on Thursday to talk about working in the industry, using Photoshop in the industry, and how important it is to know how to use it, and those kinds of things. So I'm excited about that. So yeah, by the time I got there on Friday, I got completely set up and finally plopped my ass in a chair. There was already people packing up for the day. What time you got there? Really early?
Yeah, I think what was VIP at like 3 or something. So I was there maybe like 3:30, I
Yeah,
believe, something. So I was a little bit running a little bit behind because traffic and all that sort of stuff. But it's also interesting to note we talk about like who's your printer. There's also like, well, what do you use? A lot of people will use Photoshop of digital artists, and still there's a combination of traditional and digital. For example, for me, I look at Clip Studio. A
right.
lot of people use that. I've had what's the other one that people talk about all the time? With the
Well,
K, like
uh, yeah, I do know what you're talking about. Starts
oh,
with a K.
Krita. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
looking at
yeah,
it
yeah,
right now. Krita. Yeah, that's
yeah,
that's another one that people use. So it's always interesting, just tips, tricks. What do you like? What do you don't like? And your creative process.
yeah. I think I always have this conversation with my students because there's always what I found is that people tend, just like computers, people tend to lean towards Mac or PC, and then they stick with it. They become a fan of that. I find the same thing happens with programs that if they started off on Clip Studio or they started off on Procreate or whatever, it tends to be hard to like get them to migrate to somewhere else. Um, Although I think Clip Studio, if you're a comic creator, Clip Studio is one that a lot of professional artists that use Adobe programs still say, you know what, that's still a great comic book program because it has everything that you need for comics without all the excess stuff that Photoshop has, like all the photo editing and effects that you may not need. So and it's less expensive. But some of the other programs, you know, I just don't think that they can do everything that Photoshop can do. But they don't have the learning curve. All the Adobe products are so robust that they have
Right.
a pretty steep learning curve, and on top of that, they're kind of expensive. So I totally get why people move to other programs, but that's one of the reasons why Emmy is going to come talk to my class is that they're all students who want to be graphic designers, and it's like, well, I use Procreate. Well, if you walk into a graphic design firm, they're going to be using Photoshop, so
Right, right.
you're
Use
going to
the
need to.
tools the pros use. I always say
Right.
that when people say, and Matt, I'm sure you get this. I'm going to start this conversation. We're going to nod our heads like, yep, we get this. The whole I want to do what you do conversation,
Oh, sure,
right?
yeah.
For me with radio, it's like, I want to be on, how do you be on air? I'm like, start a podcast.
Right.
Use what the professionals use. Use a StreamYard. Go get you a nice microphone, right? Like, and people want to be part of the result. They don't necessarily want to be part of the work to get there. So
Yeah, yeah,
you can
yeah.
use Procreate or whatever, but if your industry is using Photoshop, that's what you need to be using. And there's Adobe tools on the radio side, like editing side of things. Like, yeah, you have to be familiar with it. It used to be called Cool Edit. Now it's Adobe Audition. Like, you have to be familiar with these things if this is what you want to do production wise. And I always tell people, like, go for it. I want to do what you do. Well, that's a step. You're mentally putting it in the universe, but now
Mhm.
you have to follow it with the work. Energy flows where attention goes. So put your attention on that and truly learn from people. What are they using? How can I be better at this? And yeah, Photoshop, huge pain in the ass to learn. But once you do, you're there. That's another step in your journey. So, I would tell young creators, don't ever get dismayed by any sort of barrier. There are no barriers. The only barrier is you.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that Mythica is so personal to me is that it is a if you look from beginning to end or beginning to where I'm at now, it showcases my journey of trying to do just that. I went to art school and I learned a bunch of stuff, but right out of school, what people don't realize is that it's not that common that you graduate any uh, degree program and immediately like fall into a job. Like sometimes you're just not there yet, or
Right.
the industry's busy or whatever. And so I had that same challenge, and so I wanted to get into comics, and I did the same thing that we were just talking about. I'd go to creators and say, "I want to do what you do," and they would just say, "Well, make comics." Even if they're photocopied, stapled together, in your basement, and that's how Mythica started. When I first got started, I had the ideas long before in school, and what I decided was, well, I'm not finding the work consistently that I want to find. I would get like a freelance job here or there. And so, what can I do? What can I do by myself to keep creating and keep making a thing? And animation was kind of out of the question because that takes oftentimes a whole team.
Hmm.
Uh, but comics was something that I could do. So I found, some people that helped me with the writing. And then I started drawing pages, and uh, I would post up a new page every Monday. We called it Mythica Mondays. And it, uh, it was a way to keep me motivated to keep moving forward on these things. And more importantly, like an accountability. Like
Right.
after a while, I knew there was people who were like, "Where's the next page?" And so that's how it started moving forward. But then also in doing so, it did exactly what I needed it to do, which was I got better at panel layout, at drawing. And so you can see that as you look through the book. And on the one hand, I really love, and some other people have commented that they love seeing that journey of growth. On the other hand, it makes those first issues feel, like they're not as solid as the last issues, which always, grinds at me a little bit, but you got to let it go.
But as an artist, I remember drawing pictures of like Conan when I was in 6th grade. And then I'd
Mhm.
look at him in high school. I'm like, this is awful. But at the time when I drew it as a 6th grader, I was like, this is the greatest. I'm perfecting my craft. So you're building your own momentum. Everybody out there in life, like, and once you start, you take that first step, and then you take the next step, and then you take the next step. Pretty soon you look back and you're like, look at where I've come from. Right.
Right.
So it's about creating that momentum. It's about creating that product instead of the project. And it's about actually doing the work. So do the work, you'll get better naturally. Peyton Manning always says 10,000 reps. I
Hmm.
always tell people that want to be on radio, I was like, you need your chops. You need your
Yeah.
chops so that when someone puts a microphone in front of you, you're not like, what do I do? Like, you've done this a million times. Like, I love doing solo shows, like, love doing solo shows. I love having a partner and, all those sorts of things. But I can do a 3-hour show by myself 5 days a week and have zero problem doing it. One, I got a lot to say. Two, I know how to say it. And three, I know the tricks of the trade. Why? Because I've been on air for 20 years.
Right.
So with art, it's the same thing. Like, the tricks of the trade, the shortcuts, the panel layouts, the writing concepts, leaving space, proper space for the word bubbles, like all these things you already know inherently because you've been doing it for so long. So everyone out there, just create your own momentum and do the work, and you'll automatically get better through time.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's ironic like how many things in our lives overlap because um, I I always bring up to my students when they start talking about what they want to do. I like compare it to sports, and I always ask them like does anybody have a favorite athlete? And I always get a little head scratch when I'm like not a single person raises their hand in class. Like nobody likes sports in here. What the heck? But like it's an easy analogy for me to say like, well, how hard do you think Michael Jordan had to practice to get into accepted into a college team? how much time daily did he have to practice in college to get into the NBA? Once he got into the NBA, did he stop practicing or did he study what the other teams were doing? And that's the life of anything that's skill based. And if you want to do something that's skill based, that's the mindset you have to have is daily practice and getting good at it. And I try to get that out as soon as possible because a lot of them don't want to do that. So I can get, they're like, okay, maybe this isn't for me.
Right. Well, we get college graduates or people that come from, establishments like Colorado Media School, and they show up to the studio and they're like, "Where's my show?" I was like, "Get in line, kid." Like,
Right. Right.
if you are going to get one, it's going to be years from now. How hard do you want to work? What do you want to do with the dedication? And are you going to let the obstacles get in your way? There's bumps in life, but they're just bumps. I look at Michael Jordan, you mentioned, he was benched in high school. He didn't play varsity basketball. He worked his ass off to get to North Carolina, and this is why, and he's a little bit of an aloha. I'll clean it up, Matt. I don't know if I can cuss on this show, but like, yeah, Michael Jordan.
I don't know if it's a problem, but because it's on YouTube.
Yeah, I'll just say aloha, and everyone can do the math, what I really want to say. When Michael Jordan went into the Hall of Fame, he brought his high school coach to the event and then publicly shamed him as he went into the Basketball Hall of Fame as the greatest basketball player of all time. Like, that's an aloha move, but that motivated him. So don't ever let anyone, because not your projects, your books, these are all of our passions. Right. And that's why for introverts or just for artists in general, Matt, like people, I'm almost, when I tell you about Gravis, I'm bearing a little bit of my soul to you. When I tell you about Sue Immortal's a very personal story for me. Like when I tell you about these things, I'm honestly opening up to you in a way that is vulnerable, but I'm showing you my passion. I'm telling you about my thoughts and my writing and artwork and all that. Like, and that doesn't resonate with everyone. So if someone's like, doesn't like it or whatever, don't take it as I suck and this is a bad idea and it'll never work. Take it as, that's their opinion. Everyone else has opinions, and I've got thick skin because in what I do, everyone tells you, you don't know anything about football. I'm like, I study like 70 hours a week, and Peyton Manning likes me, so, and respects my opinion on football. So I always throw that. If I'm ever feeling blue, I always just go, you know what? I can call Peyton Manning right now and we can talk about football. So I think I'm okay. This random person on Twitter with 4 followers thinks I'm an idiot, but Peyton Manning respects my knowledge of football. So I think I'm all right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that the understanding and the desire that you're going to have to work and train and repetitively put in the hours and the mileage to be good at something is super important. And then the other thing is just like just being passionate and committed to what you want to do, finding the thing that makes you happy and brings you joy, because it's really easy to end up in a job that you don't like. I've had many of those. And once I finally figured out a way to, do what I love for a living, I knew that there was no going back.
Right. And nobody ever said it was easy. Like when I started in radio, I was a machinist. I was a landscaper. I grew up in the country. I was a farmer. I was a rancher. I went to 1 year of community college and I didn't even go to class. So like, I remember my art professor being like, everything you draw looks like comic books. I was like, that's how I learned how to draw. Anyway, so like totally uneducated. This is where I brag about myself. I'm totally uneducated, but I saw an opportunity to get into radio because of fantasy football. Nobody really knew what it was at the time. And I worked for free for 4 years. And I still held a regular jobby type job as a machinist. And like, I tell people that, like, hey, I really want to be in radio. You want to work for free for 4 years? Okay, because that's what I had to do. And not everyone has to do that, but that's the type of dedication it takes. Find what you love and do what you love. It's pretty easy. But it doesn't mean that at the end of if you're doing what you love, I get to wake up and I get to watch football for a living. I get to write comic books, not necessarily for a living yet, but that's the dream, right? Like, okay, I I know a lot of people that get up and go grind
Hmm.
and physical labor, mental labor, all these things where they don't enjoy it. Like I
Right.
enjoy what I do, whether that's comic books or radio, football, whatever.
Well, I think that we have so many, like I said, overlapping stories. I wanted to get back to the show and share another story that happened over the weekend. I had a couple of really great ones, and I'm sure you do too. So I'd love to hear one of yours. But one of the ones that really stuck out for me was I had a gentleman come up to my table who I may have seen before, but I don't think I've ever had a conversation with him. And his name is Chris. I don't know if I ever got his last name, but he was like a walking encyclopedia of comic history because he was a bit older than me by at least 10 years and had been to his first Comic Con when he was about 12 years old and had been going to them ever since. And that first Comic Con was like the San Diego Comic Con. It was like 1970, 3 or something. And so over the course of time, he had all of these stories about, uh, you know, Neil Adams and Bernie Wrightson and all these greats. And he just would like have all this stuff to tell. And then on top of that, he no, he came up to my table to commission me something, and that happens a lot. But most of the time, people want their favorite character drawn, or they want maybe one of my characters on the cover. And I much prefer. I'm a storyteller, and so I prefer to be able to tell a story, which generally requires more than a person. It either requires another person, because you can't generally have a story by yourself, or at least a prop. Like the old image of like the girl fishing who catches the hook on her dress.
Right.
That prop helps tell the story, but by itself, most of the time, people are just wanting pinups. And so this guy, he came up and talked for a long time. He had his buddies with him, and then he wanted to have me draw him and his buddies in this action pose, and I was like, "Oh, I love it." And then he's like, "I want to base this off of an old Batman panel that was drawn by Bernie Wrightson," and I'm a huge fan of Bernie Wrightson. I love all the line detail, and sometimes you can see the influence of it in my work. So again, I was just like even more excited. So we're getting pumped up about this commission before I even started, and that's always a good sign. And so then uh, he he dropped it off and put down the deposit, and then this was the final result of the illustration, which he absolutely loved. And then when he came back on Sunday, he stayed for like another hour telling more stories about the old days. And then his buddy, the one that has the glasses, is getting socked in the jaw there. Had asked him to get some more stuff off my table because he wanted to also be entered in to the mystery box raffle that we were doing. And so yeah, he was there for a long time, and then he came over and talked to you, which he already knew you. But he's just a guy that like has so much knowledge, and I just was soaking it up. It was so much fun. Did you know that gentleman?
I think I'd seen him at shows previously, and he's a big sports fan, a big football fan. But to me, it's the passion, the
Yeah.
lifelong passion of being a comic book fan. And that's the thing. If some of us older comic book fans will be like, Bernie Wrightson, and you immediately genuflect to the name.
Hmm.
George Perez, you immediately genuflect to the name, to the work.
Right.
For me, love Neil Adams. Jim Aparo, I don't think gets enough credit. That's my Batman, like
Hmm.
from Death in the Family. Jim Aparo, I would absolutely adore to hear as many stories about him as possible. So when you run across those people that can, have that knowledge or have that, I was hanging out with Neil Adams in 1981 or whatever. It's like, tell me more. Tell me more. I want to learn more. I was with Jack Kirby, whatever. Like, yes, tell me. I want to learn about that. I want to know more about the greats in this industry.
One of the things he was talking about, because I met Neil Adams a few times before he passed away, and he looked at my portfolio a couple times, and I'd already been sort of forewarned by some other people that, hey, he can be blunt, he can be crass, so be ready for it. And knowing that, I didn't have a problem. But something that I didn't know that Chris was telling me about was how Neil Adams was one of the first and biggest proponents for artists and their rights. Long before Image broke off and started their own thing, he fought to get, I'm going to get their names wrong, but
Joe Siegel and Jerry Schuster.
Yeah, to get them the rights, and and started, the artists, some sort, I forget what the name of that was too, but like some sort of artist
defense fund, right?
Defense fund or something like that.
Yeah.
And all that stuff was like, I knew a lot about Neil Adams, but I wasn't familiar with that. And I'm like, that's great. That's fun information. I love it. And it adds like so much dimension to the people that you already have a lot of respect for. You're like, oh, I didn't know that. So yeah, it was just a really, really fun interaction. I was really happy to get the opportunity to talk with him, and I look forward to running into him again someday. And I really enjoyed making that commission. So that was
a great looking piece of work.
Yeah, it always comes out better when I'm having fun doing it. There's always, I mean, what we do as artists or graphic designers, or I would assume even as voice radio, sometimes it's a job. Sometimes you're doing what has to be done. Mm-hmm. And you still got to be professional about it. But other times, like, it just resonates and it's fun. And I was having a lot of fun with that one.
I've always said the hardest part of my job as a talk show host is whatever's going on in your life. As soon as that light comes on and it's go time, if I sound depressed or sad or mad or whatever, if I don't sound something other than Russell Wilson got it done at the right time, Broncos country, he is here to win a Super Bowl. If I don't sound like that, the listener is going to pick up on it. So the most difficult part of my job is setting that aside, whatever's going on, and then doing the work, but doing it with passion and energy and enthusiasm, because just like everyone that tells you stories about Bernie Wrightson or Neil Adams or whoever, you hear that passion, energy, and enthusiasm, and it makes you excited. Like maybe you don't even know, like I'm not as big into hockey as you are, Matt. But when I hear you talk about hockey, or my buddy Orlando Franklin, who was at the show, former Denver Bronco, he's from Canada, and he grew up with Nazem Kadri. They played against each other growing up. Well, you hear the passion, and then I go, oh, I'm interested. I don't know as much about it as I do football, but I'm interested. So it's the passion that all of us have for whatever it is in life that makes it interesting to listen to when you hear that love come through your speech.
Yep, absolutely. So did you have I have several I can pull from, but did you have a particular standout experience at this event?
I got the tick number one. I know it's not all about me, but I'm going to make it all about me. Like, I was able to get the tick number one. You never see it. Yeah.
That's from the New England. You got a couple of
I got a couple other. I got some early Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, including a second print of number 4 that's pretty rare, from our man Smurf. But it's kind of you have sort of a nerd badge. We all do, right? And I say that lovingly. I don't say that as a bad thing. Right. But when I went to Lance, who is the general manager of Iron Lion, down in the Colorado Springs, and I was like, how's the convention going? He's like, and I said, I got the tick number 1. And he goes, spoon. Like, you just, to certain people, I would say, hey, I got the tick number 1. And they'd be like, yeah, is he in the MCU? Like, no, but I remember that book being on the wall at Haley's Comics up in Fort Collins, the very first comic book store I ever went to.
Mhm.
And John and Susan, I loved going to their shop when I lived in Fort Collins. Actually, a buddy of mine was their next door neighbor. I knew that they were selling Haley's before it actually happened. I wanted to buy the collection or have James buy it, and then I could pick through it. And I wasn't able to do it. Another guy up in Fort Collins was able to buy it. But anyway, like I remember seeing that book on the wall as a teenager and just being like, I love the Tick. I can't afford that, but if I ever
Yeah.
see it, I'm gonna get it. And it's a book you just don't see.
Yeah.
It's very low printed, and it's from New England Comics, New England Press, so it's from the
Right.
80s, super low
Hard to
printed.
find. Yeah.
Smurf had it, and I was just like, I didn't even think about it. I was like, it's one of those books, you see it, you get it.
And that's, I think about those kinds of things when I'm making my books, because most of the books that I'm making now are pretty low run in the grand scheme of things. I might only make, a couple thousand at the most. Whereas if you go through a distributor, go through Diamond, it can get into the, 5 digits easily. And the more that are printed, the more people see your book, but also like the less rare it is. And so that's kind of the next transition for Mythica, is like we're looking at different publishers that can take Mythica and get it out there to different comic shops around the globe or the country. But all these, copies that people are getting right now are going to be super rare, and are going to be those gems that people are going to be coming across later. And that's exciting to think about.
Yeah, that's
Sure.
definitely exciting. I've always thought with my books, I'm like, what if I ever saw it at Second and Charles or whatever, in a dollar bin, 50-cent bin, whatever. Part of me would be like, oh, but then part of me would be like, cool.
Right.
Somebody read my book and now it's back in circulation, so it's interesting, this journey we have in the comic book industry, because it's just, what do people like, what do they resonate with, and how do tastes change over time. I've always loved the Tick. I'll always love the Tick, and I was glad to be able to pick it up from our guy Smurf.
Yes, who may pop in. He has an invite to jump in here, but don't know if he'll be able to or not. So yeah, I also ended up chatting with Lance from the Iron Lion. It was again, for any of you that are doing shows or getting out to shows, for the first few times, trying to get started, like networking is probably just as important or more, especially in the beginning, as actually like sitting at your table and selling your product. And so there's always a way to make a convention like be beneficial for you and have a good time and feel like you're walking away feeling like it was definitely worth it, even if that isn't necessarily a huge financial gain. I see that a lot at shows where people are sitting there trying to sell, and they're just sitting there like kind of depressed looking because no one's buying their stuff. And on the other side of that, like I had a fan who finally caught up with me on Sunday, and he's like, I've been by here like 2, 3 times, and you weren't at your table. And I'm like, that's because I'm out there like wheeling and dealing, man, and I'm here by myself this time. So, and I ended up going over and talking to Lance, because Lance is one of the few, or Iron Lion's one of the few comic shops, not only in the Springs but in the state, that I haven't been able to connect with to carry the books and just set up a book signing. And so that was the first item on the agenda this morning, was emailing him and setting up some times for that. And that came about because of this show. And I had several other conversations like that with other creators, possibilities, including you. We have something we're working on, and Cecil, I'll let you elaborate as much or little as you'd like to on that right now.
Yeah, I have you doing 4 connected covers that will be for Death Support, which is my story that I came up with when I was on a plane. And I was like, if this thing goes down, like what would that feel like? And as the stewardess flight attendant was going around and talking to people, like we were going through some turbulence or whatever, and
Mhm.
she was like comforting some people or, drinks or whatever. And I was like, what if that was another being, not necessarily an angel, not necessarily a demon, but what if that was a being that was like a collector of souls that was like telling you, like, hey, we're going down. Like, you have to be comfortable at the moment you die, or your soul will be tormented. You'll create a paranormal event. So if you want to go to the afterlife, if you want to enjoy time in heaven with your family, I need you to know that you're dying right now, today.
Right,
You're
right.
gone. And like, so that started that idea, and it's Death and her three sisters. And I was like, well, who's the guy that draws women better than anybody? I was like, Matt Campbell. So, Matt, I'm excited to announce for the first time on this show that you'll be doing those four
Yeah.
pieces for Death Support. And again, Death Support is on page 3 right now of pencils. So, we've started the process, and we've got a couple covers for it. But having your 4 connected covers will be quite the feather in my cap and my company's cap. We're happy to have you on
Mhm.
board with us.
I'm excited to do it. I love the premise. I saw some really fun character designs, and I don't think I've done a few connected pieces before, but I don't think I've ever done one for covers. So I was excited about that, and so it'll be available at some point as covers for your book, probably as a print set that you can get, whether or not it's free. Because sometimes Cecil gives away a lot of free stuff on his table. He's giving away free prints all weekend. Uh, but that's something that'll be coming probably early next year. You think?
Yeah, and that's when I'll be kickstarting, because you gave me the great idea of like, all right, take your introductions to your stories, which are 8 pages, and put them together in a collected version. So I have 8 properties. I'm going to do 2 four-bangers because Smoking Gun's named after my truck.
Hmm.
My truck was a Smoking Gun. I had it in high school. I still have it today.
Right.
And anyway, I drove it for a semester in college without a water pump, and that's why it's the Smoking Gun. Anyway,
Right.
so I was like, okay, 4-banger. If you're a gearhead like me, oh, it's a 4-cylinder. So we get a 4-banger, an introduction with 4 different titles. Death Support will be in that
Get
first
this.
4-banger,
Right.
volume 1, and that'll be available on Kickstarter sometime around the beginning of the new year. So we're excited to have that and kind of take that journey into crowdfunding and see where the projects go from there to get seed money to do the rest of the projects and ideas that I have.
Yes, yes. So, is there a place where you are going to be like posting like some progress shots to keep people, interested between
Yeah,
in the next few
on
months?
Instagram, I'm either at Cecil Lammey if you want to follow my personal account, or at smokin.gun.studios for the company as a total. So smokingguncomics.com, at smokin.gun.studios on Instagram.
So, do me a favor, be sure and check those out. Also, be sure and put those links in the chat, or you can just message them directly to me in a different chat so that I can attach them to the bottom of this post when we're done live streaming. People can go check that out. So yeah, you've got several properties coming out. It's sort of an introduction to all these different properties, and then what is the plan after you get those 8-page introductions out the door?
Yeah, once that's done, then it's basically seeing what do fans like the most and what's the next project. I want to finish them all, of course, and tell the complete stories, but it's like, well, what's most popular? That first 4-banger. I'll tell you just from the convention over the weekend, Sue Mortal was off the charts as far as interest goes. So, like, okay, maybe that pushes to the front.
Hmm.
Maybe that in the first 4-banger, that's what people respond to the most, and they want to see the rest of the story with Sue Immortal. Then
Hmm.
we'll go from there. So it's an introduction. It's a way to kind of fund everything for the rest of the projects, and then say, okay, which one of these 4 stories, resonates the most, and then go forward with that one first.
Right, right. So I think we talked about this once before when we were having some lunch one time about the reasons that people get interested, what intrigues them about books. Uh, and I picked this up somewhere a long time ago, but it's what I teach my students. And that's like the six keys to an intriguing story. And these are the things that make people curious about wanting to check out a story, whether it's a movie or a book or whatever. And so one of them on the list is violence. Does it look like it's going to be a violent book? It's obviously a slice of comic book fandom. It's pretty popular. Another one is relationships, but those relationships don't necessarily need to be romantic. Like buddy cop shows are a great example of that. So anytime that a person can look at a cover or look at a story in a quick glance and tell, oh, this is going to be a team book or this is going to be a buddy, they already have an idea of, all right, there's going to be interaction between these two. There's going to be tension, and that's what is going to be, the thing I'm interested in, or whatever. So another one is comedy. Is it going to be funny? Some people are looking for that. And so I think that, if Sue Immortal is one of those, things that's getting attention, and that means that crowd is most likely leaning towards either, violence or wickedness or something like that. And so it might be, beneficial when you do your four banger to try and put the other violent books, in that same four set, and then the other one might be slightly a different audience, because
Right.
when you can start to narrow down like who that audience is, it really can affect like your marketing and the keywords that you're going to use and the hashtags you're going to use, and really help to reach your audience much quicker, rather than just come check out my cool book.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I'm bet you have a lot of different ideas, so I'm looking forward to seeing which one takes off first. I think a lot of them will do well.
And as you
Um,
know, as a storyteller, Matt, it's like, what do you want to say?
mhm,
It's the people, it's your theme. Like, what do I want to say? Like,
mhm,
I know for So Immortal, again, a very personal story. I want to talk about the value of life. This guy has lived for 400 years and he doesn't want to live, but he can't
right,
die.
right,
Not yet. And now there might be reasons where he wants to live instead. So it's an examination of depression, basically, and being like, okay, what's it take to get by? What's it take to get through? What's it take to be a hero? What's it
right.
take to move on every day
Well,
when
yeah, I
all you
think
want to
that
do
if
is
you
die?
can like, uh-oh,
I'm still
oh,
there.
okay, I like
Yeah.
lost audio for a second. I don't know if it was me
Okay.
or you. But yeah, I totally agree that, like, that's part of the pitch part, is like letting people know what this story is really about, not like who the character is or what reasons he's immortal, or this kind of thing. It really comes down to something that we can relate to, which is, like you said, not wanting to continue to be living this particular life. And what is he going to do? Is he going to find a way to find something to be happy about and want to live? Is he going to find a way to get his wish? Those kinds of things. That's, if you can get to the point where people are asking those questions in their mind, then you've successfully put out a good pitch, in my mind. Um, so wrapping up here, because we're almost at an hour. Uh, Final thoughts on the show, things that you love, things you might like to see improve next time, because he's definitely planning on doing more. Um, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I love everything that they're doing. I understand, and I can't even imagine what they do on the back end, like what Ken does, setting things
Mm-hmm.
up, and what James does, setting things up, and Trish does, setting things up. Like, it's a huge chore, it's a huge task, to be sure. And every time they work it out, they get a little better, and they learn from each time around. So a great time had by all. And again, I'm just
Hold on.
happy to be on the show.
I gotta change my audio.
Yeah, your headset died on you. They're running out of juice, right? Yeah, that's what happens. So for me, it's like, okay, that's a good way to be, a positive way to be.
Uh-oh.
Yes, no, thumbs up, thumbs down.
Hold on, I can't hear anything.
Okay.
Why? What happened? Are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? There you go. Yes, no?
All right, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. You got me?
I still can't hear anything.
Still nothing?
I think either my headphone batteries died and then it automatically jumped. I was trying to switch it out. You could probably still hear me, but I can't seem to switch now that we're live to a different microphone. I tried moving it back, but so you can hear me, but I can't hear you. Hopefully our guests can hear you. But I would say I'll probably just wrap up here. I want to say that, again, thank you for everybody that came out. The mystery box was picked up by John Gonzalez, is the winner of the mystery box. And so thank you for everybody that entered into that. I think I'll do that again next time, so be on the lookout for that. Be sure to like and subscribe to the the Matt Campbell Art YouTube page. I'm wanting to get back into doing more videos on YouTube. So if you guys want that and want to see more of that, be sure and hit the like so I know that. And then I'll be sure and put Cecil's links down in the comments section. And anything else you want to add before we go?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity to be on the show with you, and I thank everybody for watching out there. And keep making comics.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for stopping by. And thank you, Cecil, for being here. And we will see you next time.